Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be going through some best Dynasty IDP trade targets for rebuilding teams.
Hike!
All right, Joe, so we're going to be talking about two each. So who's your first one?
First one I'm going to go with is going to be defensive end Joseph Ossai of the Cincinnati Bengals. And, this guy, despite going into his fourth season here, he's still only 24 years old. So came in as a bit of a younger player, but really like what I've seen out of him these last few weeks. Since kind of getting an increased opportunity with Sam Hubbard, being out with that injury. And honestly, I like the fact that not only has over the past 5 weeks, he's had 3.5 sacks, but just the amount of tackles these last couple of weeks he had, 5 tackles against the Cleveland Browns, 8 tackles this past week against the Denver Broncos as well. So he looks like a guy that he's not just going after the sack numbers. He's also decently playing the run game as well. Trey Hendrickson, he could be gone this upcoming season. Just looking over his contract, the Bengals could get out of his contract and only take under $3 million cap hit this upcoming season. He's also just an unrestricted free agent in 2026. Similar thing with Sam Hubbard. He's an unrestricted free agent in 2026. So if one of these guys were to happen to leave, or the Bengals just move on from one of them or both of them, it creates an increase in opportunities for Joseph Ossai. He's honestly a guy that I've been interested in since his rookie year. Bounced around on my dynasty team in our Fantrax League, Steve. Just haven't been able to hold on to him, and just was looking for more production. But it seems like if that opportunity arises for him, he could be ready to produce for you.
How much would the save? How much would the Bengals save if they cut Hendrickson?
Well, his cap hit is $18.6 million, so they'd be looking at it like a $16 million savings, because his dead cap hit would be 2.6.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's really good. I mean, you got to remember the Bengals have to sign Chase, or they don't have to, but they're going to be the push is going to be the extension for Chase and the signing of T. Higgins. So they're going to need all the cap space that they can get. Although Hendrickson has been very good. He's been a dominant edge rusher for them. So it might be hard for them. They may ask him just to restructure. I don't know if they'll end up cutting him because he's been so good. But you're not wrong. I mean, Ossai is definitely looking like a late bloomer. A guy you and I both, I think, talked about in the past. The guy we were kind of excited about, but it just seemed like he was never turning it all in. Now, for whatever reason, it seems like it was. I feel like for weeks I'm like, oh yeah, Joseph Ossai, and I'm like, it's a flash in the pan. It's a flash in the pan. Yeah. Well, now it's like noticeable. It's like maybe this isn't a flash in the pan, and maybe I should pick this guy up because he's looking a lot better. So I definitely see the logic on your end.
Yeah, just looking at the Sam Hubbard contract situation as well, and he's going to be coming back from that knee injury, but his cap hits $11.6 million, but he's got a dead cap of $2 million, so be a $9.6 million savings if they wanted to save even more cap and move on from him as well.
I think Hubbard
has also been another productive player. He's going to be 30 years old this upcoming season as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's homegrown Cincinnati, so that one might be a little bit tougher. But Hendrickson's a better player. So if they were going to take the emotion out of it, they'd be better off cutting Hubbard, especially coming off that injury, and keeping Hendrickson, in my opinion.
Yeah, and honestly, that would be great for Ossai because, Hendrickson's a great player to have opposite, and that's kind of how they've been operating and really being able to see the most out of Ossai, filling in for Hubbard here.
So my Dynasty IDP trade target I'm going to be talking about here is linebacker Edgerrin Cooper of the Green Bay Packers. Joe, he's a guy that you and I talked about early during the combine, pre-draft process. And one of the things about him was he was sort of a tweener. Was he going to be more of an edge rusher because he had that pass rush ability, or was he going to be a traditional linebacker? We didn't really know. And then, he goes to Green Bay. But, I got to tell you, he really has taken advantage of some opportunities. Quay Walker has missed the past 2 games due to an injury. And honestly, if you look at Quay Walker in general, he's been quite a disappointment. I actually think that Edgerrin Cooper is a younger, faster, more reactive version of Quay Walker and what they wanted from him. But if you look about it, I mean, he's been playing really well. he's recorded over 28 total tackles, including 1 sack and an additional 6 tackles for loss over the past 3 games, including an interception. So, like I said, he's really been taking advantage of this opportunity, and he's been somewhat of a disappointment all year. He just hasn't had a lot of opportunities. I think he's starting to be a player that's getting on the mend. And, for someone who has him, it might be hard for you to pry away, but I'm seeing a glimmer of things to come, and it could be really, really good. So I want to try to see if I can't take advantage and pounce on it, see if I can't get him.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I agree. Edgerrin Cooper was a guy that was interested in the pre-draft process. We were only sure, about him and his destination, but he's really shown to be a, productive linebacker for the Packers. And, outside of, dealing with the injuries, when he's been in there, he's been a good player, and I definitely would be trading for him as well.
Because these past 3 games is when he's really been on a tear. That's when it's really saying, like, okay, maybe things are clicking now. This is all coming together. He's actually going to be this player. Because the thing was that he was raw. We didn't know how he was going to transition to just being that inside linebacker, off-the-ball linebacker. But he's showing he could do it.
Yeah, and I know we were kind of nervous about, like you said, Quay Walker being there, and they're kind of similar, like, athletic linebackers. But honestly, he's been better.
Yeah, he really has. And Quay Walker will only have 1 year left, and I don't think that he's in Green Bay's future. So I think it's the Edgerrin Cooper show going forward. Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell for upcoming videos. We do videos throughout the year, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. So, Joe, who is your second IDP trade target for rebuilding teams for those dynasty leagues?
Yeah, for my second player, I'm also going to go with a rookie, and that's going to go with defensive tackle Jer'Zhan Newton with the Washington Commanders. Guy was a second-round pick. I know he was a guy that, we both had our eyes on and we were interested in. He's had an inconsistent rookie year so far, just kind of up and down. But these last few weeks, it seems like he, could be turning things around a bit. He does have 2 sacks on the season. He had a nice performance against the Philadelphia Eagles a couple weeks ago where he had 6 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and then also had a sack in that game. And I think it really, for Jer'Zhan Newton, he just needs the ability for more playing time. And I think if you look at some guys, like they have Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, as these guys are, getting it to be older interior players, they, Jonathan Allen is a free agent in 2026. He'll be 31 at that point. And, Daron Payne, they also have a potential out for him in 2026 as well. But even this upcoming season, if the Commanders wanted to, if they got rid of Jonathan Allen, it'd be a $6 million dead cap hit. They'd be a $17 million savings if they happen to want to do that. But I do know they like to have these defensive tackle rotations. Just wondering at some point, though, do they let the young player in Jer'Zhan Newton kind of go and give him the playing time and see if he can't develop into something? I just, with a lot of these rookies and the hype around him, and he has been inconsistent, hasn't exactly performed the way we'd want him to. This could be now the time to get him before he starts getting those opportunities. And just knowing that, especially at the defensive tackle position, takes at least, around the 3-year mark for these guys to really turn it on to become something. So if you're a rebuilding team, I'd be targeting him.
Yeah, he's shown some flashes over the course of the year, and he definitely had an opportunity. Once Allen got injured, was really an opportunity for him to kind of get thrust into the started role. And you got to remember too, the Commanders, I think kind of surprisingly, but maybe I wasn't following the team closely enough, but they released Phidarian Mathis, former, I believe, 2nd-round pick of the Commanders, obviously former regime. But still, he was a part of that interior defensive lineman group. So I'm with you. I'm with you 100% on this one. I really liked Jer'Zhan Newton during the draft process. I drafted him in our Dynasty IDP league, and for me, he's the type of guy exactly to the point you're talking about. What's great about him is that coming out of college, he has that interior pass rush ability. He's not just a tackle floor guy. If you get a tackle floor and the pass rush, then you got the mix of both worlds. He's got that. So I think, they're starting to give him this opportunity. In year 2, I think he could really kind of move forward, but in year 3, I think he could just skyrocket. So, like you said, I think when in the draft process, he was probably one of the biggest losers because at the time it was like, oh, he got drafted to the Commanders, and the Commanders have Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen. But, a lot of things change, and you're starting to see Jer'Zhan Newton have some flashes. I think he's going to get more involved.
Yeah, and I mean, it definitely helps too. I mean, with Dan Quinn being there, his defensive scheme is pretty friendly, and look, the success is there, so it looks like he'll at least be there for a few more years here.
Yeah, and he's not going anywhere either. So
yeah.
So my last Dynasty IDP trade target for rebuilding teams is going to be defensive end Nolan Smith. If you look at the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line, which is hard to believe, Joe, because I feel like it was the hallmark of their team a few years ago, but all of a sudden it just vanished. But you had Brandon Graham. He went to injured reserve due to a triceps injury. He's already really old anyways. He's 36 years old. More than likely, he probably retires. You had Bryce Huff, the free agent that was brought over from the New York Jets. He's been awful. I mean, just really bad. Did not do what they were hoping that he would accomplish for them. And then you've got, who else you got in the room? You got Jalen Hunt, the later round pick that they drafted this past year, Josh Sweat, who has shown some flashes. But then it's really Nolan Smith. And if you look at Nolan Smith over these past 3 weeks, I think he's starting to turn it on. He's had 2 sacks out of the 3 games. He's had a forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, getting involved in the tackle game as well. So this is his second year. A lot of people said that Nolan Smith would be similar to a guy like Hassan Reddick. We saw what Hassan Reddick was able to do while in Philadelphia. He was able to be very successful. Obviously not with what happened with the Jets. But we're starting to see Nolan Smith come on more. So, again, I'm trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit. You probably would have been better off trading for him a few weeks ago. I get that. But, I don't think the window is completely closed yet. This is an opportunity. You've got Jalen Carter in the middle to create that interior pass rush. You got Jordan Davis in there, that big, run mauler. So hopefully, you can't hard to double team people when you have to, guard against that guy. So I think overall there's some real opportunity for Nolan Smith. I was a little nervous of his smaller frame, and he did not have a good rookie year. So I thought he had a bust written all over him. But he's really starting to come on, so I'm interested.
Yeah, he's definitely an interesting player, and he is coming on. And just because he's coming on, too, I mean, sure, it could drive up the price a little bit, but that owner still might not believe it, right? I mean, to your point, like, if they've had him since the rookie year, he had a disappointing rookie year, then, was looking kind of another disappointment this year, but has caught fire late, so that they could be wondering, like, is this just a flash in the pan, and they might just be looking to sell him. Sure, you might have to go a little bit more for him, but I do think it could be a good investment just because we've seen players at the edge rusher position for the Eagles have success. For whatever reason, though, like it's just wild. I mean, I know they don't have Hassan Reddick, but like the Eagles were just sacking people a ton last year, getting a whole bunch of sacks, and then now it's just like they're not getting any sacks.
Well, and that's the one thing you could say as a counter argument to what I'm saying is I could very well see if the Eagles, do not reach their goals this year, what they want to do and reach the Super Bowl, making the Super Bowl, you could argue that the edge rusher position is one of, if not the biggest need for them, and that they would address it. I mean, they addressed their secondary this past year. They really wanted to tighten that up. Got Keon Mitchell, got Cooper DeJean. So, I could very well see them, whether free agency, whether trade, whether draft, bring in another edge rusher, which it could help Nolan Smith, could hurt him. If, the other guy is a better player, Nolan might have that upside. So it's hard to really say, to be honest with you, but I think there's enough potential there that interests me.
Yeah, the potential's there, and I think if they did bring in somebody else, it would just help him out. Probably be able to free him up a little bit. Probably take less pressure on him. Being so he's not the only guy producing in terms of the sack numbers as well. And I think if the coaching staff stays, being in the second year of the Vic Fangio system would probably only help these guys too.
So that does it for this episode. We talked about a few Dynasty IDP trade targets to go get for those rebuilding teams out there. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.